So welcome back to another edition of the Has Been podcast because I am a has been. Um, this is Notre Dame week at Purdue. Boilers head to South Bend on Saturday for another matchup with the Irish. Last year, 66-7. Notre Dame beat Purdue. Uh, but today we're going to discuss or talk about, or I'm going to talk about, there's no one here to discuss it with me, uh, kind of the future of Purdue and Notre Dame from a football standpoint. And should there be any um, reach out from Purdue standpoint to continue this series if possible? When you look at what Purdue already has scheduled, um, there are not a lot of openings in the next probably, you know, 5, 6 years. Um, and Notre Dame's situation is constantly evolving and changing. So um, right now, the contract between Purdue and Notre Dame goes through 2028. So there's four more meetings scheduled with the current contract. Um, and this series was agreed to and scheduled, and contracts were signed. Um, 2017, 2018. They were amended at some point because there was supposed to be a neutral site game uh, in 2026 um, that Purdue was going to receive 1.5 million from Notre Dame to play a neutral site game. No idea where that was going to be. That didn't happen. Next year's game is at Purdue, and then in 2027 at Notre Dame, in 2028 at Purdue to close out the current contract. The question is it in Purdue's best interest to play Notre Dame just from a pure football standpoint, from a pure trying to get wins standpoint? Um, Part of the fan base enjoys it. It was an annual event for so many years until the change of when conferences started to get bigger, when the Big Ten got bigger, when the Big Ten went to 9 games, the Notre Dame game had to go away for a period of time. There was a neutral site game down in Indianapolis in, I believe, 2014 uh, that Purdue and Notre Dame played in, but then they were on hiatus for several years, and it's a series that was played annually, I believe, since the late 40s. Um, but it was an every year thing. It was something that Purdue fans look forward to. It was something that Purdue looked forward to. You know, back then, even in the 1970s and 80s, in the 90s to some degree, it was an opportunity for Purdue to be on national television. Um, when Notre Dame signed its contract with NBC many years ago, anytime you went to Notre Dame, you were on NBC, and usually when Notre Dame came to Purdue, they were on ABC or ESPN. So that was you were guaranteed at least one kind of national game every year, and just the whole you know rivalry thing and to play for the Shillelagh and all that kind of stuff. I mean, Notre Dame has several games that would be deemed rivalry games, and Purdue has its own rivalry games. But now that the landscape of college football has dramatically changed over the last decade or so, and we don't know what is coming, or we don't know when it'll come because more change will happen over the next 5 years. Um, Not sure exactly when it'll happen or what form it'll take, but there'll be more changes. Is it in Purdue's best interest to try to continue to play Notre Dame if possible? I would say no. Purdue's program, as of today, is at a point where it needs wins. And I don't have the data in front of me, but Purdue hasn't beaten Notre Dame a lot in the last 10 years, the last 20 years. um, and they rarely win at Notre Dame, and they've had a hard time winning at Purdue. Um, so, Purdue's in a point where they need to. I'm not saying you go all the way and go Cupcake City, but um, they're at a point where they need to get some wins and get some momentum in this 18 team conference, which is a nightmare for teams like Purdue and other schools. Um, if you can get 3 wins out of the gate, then you need 3 more. The way the current landscape is right now, 3 more to get to a bowl game, and that's how you build your program, and that's how you get things going, and then you look for bigger goals down the line. But I just don't see a Purdue Notre Dame matchup as a good thing for Purdue, and it may not be a good thing for Notre Dame either. Because they've got a lot of people that they're trying to please. They've got rivalry games that they have to play. USC, how long does the Purdue or Notre Dame USC game continue with USC in the Big Ten now? In Notre Dame playing a partial ACC schedule. They've kept it going, but for how long? And the next conference realignment, um, what happens? One way to solve all this would to get Notre Dame in the Big Ten. Um, and then one pipe dream is you have a 24 team conference and you're split into divisions, and Purdue and Notre Dame are in the same division. So that would solve at least being able to play Notre Dame every year. But everybody wants a piece of Notre Dame because of when you beat Notre Dame, the attention that it brings. Um, so and and even if Purdue wanted to continue playing Notre Dame, I'm not sure that they can because of Purdue's non-conference schedule that's already kind of set through 2029. Next year they're playing Indiana State, Wake Forest, and then Notre Dame. In 2027, they're playing at Notre Dame. They host North Carolina. Will Bill Belichick still be the coach at North Carolina in 2027? And then they host Miami of Ohio. In 28, they host Western Illinois. They're at Wake Forest, and they host Notre Dame. And then 2029 is the first year that Notre Dame's not on the schedule with the current contract. They host UConn, they go to Vanderbilt, and then Indiana State. So 2030 would be the first opportunity to kind of rekindle this contract with Notre Dame if Purdue and Notre Dame want to do that. I don't know. I can't tell you that if they want to do it. Um, a lot of it depends who's in charge at Purdue. By that time, will Mike Bobinski, still be the athletic director at Purdue? Now, something like that would have to get decided way before 2030 if Purdue and Notre Dame are going to continue to play. But in 2030, Purdue's scheduled to be at TCU. The next year, they're at North Carolina. 2033, they're at Mississippi, and then 2034, they host Mississippi. For all we know, those could be conference games as we get to in the 2030s. So we just don't know what the landscape is going to be. And if you knew where Purdue's program was going to be when you look at last year's game, um, when you did this deal, you wouldn't have done it. Purdue, Purdue just wasn't at Notre Dame's level last year. We'll see how closely they are this year. Um, but it's such a hard series to schedule now that with Purdue's needs, you know, along with Notre Dame's needs, that I don't think those needs line up. And um, it'd be an interesting question for the administrator to see if there's been any discussion about trying to um, pick up the series again in the 30s. Um, you know, it'd be nice if Purdue and Notre Dame could play, over a 10-year period. four times, maybe six times. Probably four times would be enough in a decade to kind of keep the appetite wet for the rivalry. Um, but you know, again, I think you know, those games in the night in the 2030s that I mentioned have been scheduled for a while. But I get a sense that maybe athletic directors are bug in my face, maybe hesitant about going too far out because they don't know what the landscape is going to be. We're just, we're in the revenue sharing phase right now. We're in the NIL world. What does all that look like in 10 years as they get through this initial phase of revenue sharing? And is it still going to be there? And, are we going to have just a completely different system at that point? And how does that all line up? And what happens to the conferences? Are we headed towards two conferences? Are we going to have the ones we have today, or everybody going to merge together? And are we going to have an NFL style of conferences where you have, the AFC and the NFC um, and the Big Ten and SEC playing those roles? I mean, we just don't know. There's a lot of things on the table, and we just don't know how it's going to look. But Purdue needs to. I don't think they need to go Indiana's route, where they've really bought themselves three victories, and I say there. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. There's really not. I mean, I think Purdue has taken a different approach, but football schedules are done so far in advance that Barry Odom had nothing to do with these schedules. I mean, he is these schedules are his, even though when these schedules were put together, he was not even on Purdue's radar as far as being a head coach. Would he have approved a Wake Forest? Would he have approved a North Carolina? Would he have approved um, some of these games? The Vanderbilt game is left over from uh, 2019, I believe, when Vanderbilt came to Purdue. And then 10 years later, you're going to go to Vanderbilt. The TCU game is left over from the Jeff Rom era, where, Mike Bobinski and their athletic director were, good friends, and they both needed a game, but the return trip doesn't come for 10, 12 years. Um, Usually it doesn't happen like that. And, and some of this could be adjusted as schools, have different needs and goals that they need to fulfill. Um, I would expect some shakeup in Purdue's non-conference scheduling over time, um, just because Purdue needs to find a way to get three wins in the non-conference to set themselves up in the Big Ten to try to get to a bowl game, and that's what this is all about. And then if you get a year like Indiana did last year, and you can strike, you can look at bigger things. But for now, Purdue's non-conference schedule, as you look the next 5 years or so, I think fits Purdue well. I mean, it's not easy win, easy win, easy win. It's you get Indiana State next year, you get Wake Forest, which is probably an equal to Purdue in the ACC. And then you got Notre Dame at home. I mean, that's a good non-conference schedule. And then the year after that, you get North Carolina along with Notre Dame and Miami of Ohio. Again, that's a good schedule. You're playing notable programs, recognizable programs with North Carolina and Notre Dame. And then after that, you're going to Wake Forest. You're hosting Notre Dame. Again, two good opponents. And then in 2029, you're going to Vanderbilt. You're hosting UConn and you're hosting Indiana State. Maybe the marquee of those opponents come down a little bit, but still you're going on the road in the non-conference. You're going to as of today, a Power Five program or Power Four program at Vanderbilt, and their program seems to be coming around. Uh, but we don't. I have no idea what Vanderbilt will look like in 29. I have no idea what Purdue will look like in 29. I don't even know what Purdue will look like in 26. Um, so I think Purdue has a good good schedule, but I'd be curious now to watch as long as Odom's here, how do they handle non-conference games moving forward? And will he, we're looking 5 years down the line. Will Barry Odom be here in 5 or 6 years to play a non-conference schedule, or is it going to be up to somebody else? Usually these games are done so far in advance that another coach kind of takes over the schedule, and you're just kind of left with it. Jeff Braun didn't get a great opportunity to schedule non-conference games because they were already done, and any of the non-conference games he scheduled are, you know, Ryan Walters played them or Barry Odom's playing them. You know, Jeff Brown wanted to play, really good teams. He wanted good competition, and that's that's what you kind of got. That's how TCU ended up on the schedule, and some other schools. So you know, over the next, counting this year, the next 4 years, I think this will probably be the end of the Purdue Notre Dame series, as we know it, unless the schools can come together and figure it out. Um, and we just don't know Notre Dame's needs at this point from a scheduling standpoint. And um, again, the best thing if you want to see Purdue and Notre Dame continue to play is for Notre Dame to be in the Big Ten. And that could happen one day. Don't know if it'll happen in my lifetime, but it could happen one day. So, um, yeah, it'll be, I mean, but just kind of enjoy the next 4 years of the Purdue Notre Dame series. I mean, I think if Purdue could somehow get out of it, they would. Um, I'm not sure it'd be a wise move to get out of it just from a public perception standpoint. Um, because Purdue and Notre Dame should play. They should, to be honest, they should play in every sport. They don't play in men's basketball. Uh, they don't play in women's basketball anymore. Um, Still playing baseball, probably playing softball. Volleyball on occasion. They've played. Um, but it should be something Purdue and Notre Dame, throughout their whole athletic department, they should be playing because they're only a couple hours apart. Um, but with Notre Dame being in the ACC, they've got obligations there. Purdue being in the Big Ten now, and the expanded Big Ten, you got the obligations there. But it just would be, um, it would be good, you know, good overall if Purdue and Notre Dame played more, not just in football, but in other sports, because um, it's just it's a deal. I think people get fired up and they get interested and pay attention to when Purdue and Notre Dame get together. But anyway, just wanted to share thoughts on the Purdue Notre Dame football series um, as we get ready for Saturday's game up there. Purdue's still a 25-point or so underdog. Notre Dame coming off a loss, just like they did last year. They lost to Northern Illinois last year. This year they lost to Texas A&M. They're looking at 0-2. Probably still have a path to the college football playoff, but I don't know if they have a path to the college football playoff if somehow Purdue goes up there and wins. So it's desperate times for Notre Dame. It's a chance for Purdue to build off what they did last weekend against USC. Cut down on the turnovers, um, and see if you can go up there and um, you know play well enough, and then after that, Purdue's got an off week, and then back to the Big Ten season. And I think the month of October gives Purdue some opportunities to get another win or two. Um, November does not provide those opportunities right now, but October does, and we'll see if they can take advantage of that and see what happens Saturday, and then set the sights on the month of October to see what happens there. Anyway, thanks for stopping by. Appreciate it, and we will we'll do another one of these next week after Purdue and Notre Dame square off. Coming up on Thursday, you'll have the Big Ten men's and women's basketball schedules will be released in the afternoon. Um, the men are playing 18 game schedule, or sorry, the men will play a 20 game schedule. The women will play 18 games. The women are playing IU twice and they play everybody else once. The men play IU twice every year. But just you know who they're playing. It's just the sequence of games. And always curious to see how that unfolds and when teams now go to the West Coast, when do the West Coast teams come east, so on and so forth. It's the sequence of games now that kind of determine, um, what kind of path you have to the championship. So look for that later in the week, and you can check the Substack machine. Once those schedules come out, we'll post them up there um, and then go from there. Anyway, thanks for stopping by. Appreciate it. Have a good day, and we will talk at another time.